Amor vaziado
আমি আমার মনটাকে ভালোবাসি
Ik hou van alle mensen.
Sagitoen e quamio vigitoen ai heiwa so shite chowa
Hey, aloha mai iao.
amo tutta l'umanità
And nossa carta
sarang yang hajua rakas rau haya harmonia
That's you.
Join hearts and souls together. Love, peace, and harmony. Love, peace, and harmony.
Welcome, everyone. And I hope it's one of your favorite songs because it sure is mine. So if you were reading the screen, I want to just, first of all, I am not the special surprise guest tonight. I have no idea who it is, but I do know a little bit about Russ Fox, and I'm going to share that with you. So it's quite appropriate that he is a conductor, orchestras, choirs. And so there were 50 singers singing Love, Peace, and Harmony. I thought that was iconic. Yes. He is also a SHEN therapist. You'll learn more about SHEN. It is not soul, heart, mind. It's a completely different acronym. I have experienced it. In fact, not just two-handed SHEN, but actually six-handed. And I highly recommend it. But let's not stop there and go into that. Well, let's pause there for one moment. Russ is not only a SHEN therapist, but he's a trainer. He's been doing it a long time. Yeah. He is also a Tao Hands Practitioner, and in looking at those here tonight, many of you are. Russ is also. He is also in the Tao Science Messenger training program, and you probably know, most of you I know who Dr. and Master Zhigang Sha is, and he and Dr. Rulin Shu, the physicist, they're the ones that have co-created. That's Master Sha's words. He says, Dr. Rulin and I have co-created Tao Science. He asked her years ago to, and this is just a short aside, and then we'll go over to the main story, which is Russ. But he asked her, when she told him that she could write a mathematical formula for love, he says, you can communicate to people that I can't. And so they've co-created 2 books, and Dr. Runa is working on the 3rd. And I'm going to stop there and say, Russ Fox, get here on the screen, guy. It's your time. I want to hear you.
Thanks so much, Terry. Listen, it has been a while since I've been up to Portland, but on multiple occasions, I've had the joy of working with Terry and receiving blessings from him also. So it has gone in both directions. And so thank you very much, Terry. You know, I have been in this forum 2 or 3 times already. We've talked about so many things already, but there are new people, and there are going to be a couple of points that some of you have heard before. But tonight there's a new twist, because everything is going to be focused on a very particular thing. And while I go into my screen share mode, let's just pray this all works. Okay, I have to get rid of that. I have to get rid of, wait a second. Okay. Get rid of this. Oh, no. Terry, talk amongst yourselves for just 1 second. I'm so sorry. I just got rid of the most important thing.
Okay, I've been talking, but I was muted. So what's important to know is what Russ is doing is what I have challenges with too when I'm doing the presentations. And that's getting PowerPoint to come up without my email showing. And so that's what Russ is working on right now. What I want you to think about is, number 1, who is this mystery special guest? I had a guess about that, but it's probably not who I was thinking about, because that person is just busier than 18 people.
Okay, I found my presentation, Terry.
Pardon?
I think I found my presentation.
Well, then let's bring you back
Well,
on.
hallelujah. Yes, here we go. And let's just go here and put play. Okay, however, folks, I am a musician and I'm all these other things, but a technologist, I am not quite. And for our special guest, I couldn't be more embarrassed. However, that's okay. Hello, am I still on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I've lost you. I have no controls.
So
Oh,
Russ,
there you are. There you are. Found
oh,
you.
wonderful.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. All right, folks. There we are. Now, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your face.
No, can you see anything on my, no, you can't. Okay.
No.
Just your face.
I'm so sorry. Thank you. Now, what I need to do is go here and then go screen share. Now.
Now we see your screen.
Now, okay. And in my screen, I do this, and suddenly you see this. All right, listen, thank you very much for your patience. And if it's possible for you to reduce the pictures by hitting the smallest of the stack or the minus sign, then you'll see most of the screen. Okay.
We see the whole screen.
Excellent, excellent. Tonight, we're talking about something so important that it is, and I'm like a racehorse at the starting gate. And so here I go, and it's going to be a mile a minute, and I'm going to pack in as much as I possibly can. So thank you for your patience and your understanding. Some of us are challenged in certain ways, and I obviously fit into that. So that's fine. Now, why is there Tao science? Why is there Tao at all? Why is there SHEN therapy? Why is there anything that is here to help us and improve? Because that's the nature of being human. That's the nature of mortality. We're here to progress. There are those people who have the concept of the law of eternal progression, that if in fact there's such a thing as reincarnation, it's not usually to punish you for a bad life. It's to allow you to learn more. And then the next life you learn more, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're moving along here, and we're looking at manifesting and empowering your personal journey. And if I had to say, that's why I studied Tao Hands. That's why I am a SHEN therapist. That's why I've been a musician for over 50 years. Because through these mediums, I can empower my personal journey. I can empower others' personal journeys. So, but we're going to do it tonight through an understanding that the Tao, certain shamanic traditions, and then also the whole thing of self-care and self-love, that these are all on a certain level one and the same. Now, those of you who are experts in the Tao, please hear me out, because there are so many times that when we explain things to an audience or a group of people, we shy away from certain words because we want to make sure we're understood. And so if you do the same thing with shamanic traditions, it's not hocus pocus. We're not dealing with anything unusual. It's part of being human, trying to understand all the forces that are around us that don't generally make sense, but we must understand them. And one of the ways we do that is through this principle that is now all over the internet called self-care and self-love. Even within Tao Science Messenger program that I'm privileged to be a part of, that was one of the main lessons. How, from a Tao standpoint, do you take care of your inner progress, your inner needs in a caring, loving manner? Well, let's just see if we can move along here and see. There are questions. We all have questions. That's fine. But when we have questions, it's usually because there are opposing things. And one of the things that a lot of us are in Western society, we look at studies, books, the experts, and in medical science, of course, the doctors, that they're almost gods to us because they know so much more than us. They know how we operate internally and whatnot. So that's wonderful. And a lot of people have stacked all of their everything they understand into that basket. But then comes along this problem. What happens when ancient wisdom comes along? And ancient wisdom says, well, it's a little different than that. And then they don't agree. This is a conundrum for a lot of people. If I came from a fundamentalist background, it's hard for me to look at scientific things with an open mind. So how do we do an open mind in it when we've got this conundrum? There's another way of looking at this, and that is what happens when modern science and ancient wisdom agree. Now we have a problem. And I say, when they agree, what time is it? Well, this sounds dangerously like how many psychologists does it take to screw in a light bulb? But when they agree, what time is it actually? Well, it's time to listen. Because now we're looking at something that people for 5,000 years have been talking about in a manner that they understand, sometimes metaphoric. But when you look at it from a scientific standpoint, you say, oh my goodness, these are the same thing. And so for there to be such a thing as Tao science, that in itself seems like a misnomer, doesn't it? It's ancient wisdom and science. How could that be? Well, in fact, it is one and the same. And it is astounding to me as a very left brain person on one way, because I have to analyze musical scores and do a lot of that sort of thing. But then I've got that right side of my brain also, which is I want to understand the mysteries. I want to understand the emotions. What's fueling all of this? Why are we here? And how much progress are we making? Well, basically, I'm me. I'm Russ Fox. And if you wanted to take a screenshot of this, you can, but I understand that all of this information is going to be in the chat. You can take a look at it. I'd love to have you connect with me if you have any questions following this about whatever I may have said. Okay, so let's move into this and see where we're going. Now, okay. Now, is there a way I can get this to move ahead? There we go. We have scientists, engineers, and inventors. They do things. They do things that I have. How do you get to the moon? How do you create a cell phone? How do, my grandmother lived at a time when there was no electricity in anybody's houses and there was no such thing as an automobile. And she lived to see us landing on the moon. I mean, so just astounding, but I don't understand most of what the world presents to me when it comes from these guys. I benefit from them, and I long ago stopped trying to understand what it is they talk about. But now there's another whole group of people, and that would be shamans and healers. Now, what do they do? Shamans simply, the word, by the way, comes from northern Russia and the Siberian area, and a lady shaman is a shamanka. Maybe you didn't know that. Just add a K and you've got a shamanka. However, their goal is to make sense out of spiritual realities, energetic realities that people in the village don't understand. And they may not even understand it. But from their standpoint, they bring those spirits into the village, usually to heal. They sometimes identify difficulties and problems. They dream dreams. They have visions. However, their goal is most times quite beneficial, giving order and sanity to a fairly insane world, no matter what you have technologically. There are things you just need to take on faith. Shamans communicate with the spirits. They talk to them. Now, you might take a look at that before we move on. Those of you who are in Tao Science or in the Tao community, do we talk to souls? Oh, yes, we do. Are we able to ask their assistance? All the time. Do I call Tao scientists and those of us who have Tao hands shamans? Well, no, because it's a word that has so many now attachments to it that we don't do that. But shamans and healers, very important throughout history. We also have performing artists. Performing artists, they can create a world that you can disappear into. And suddenly, when you're in that inner world, where are you? That's a good question, is it not? Time stops. Suddenly your history disappears and you are experiencing a reality that you cannot normally get in your walking around daily life. What are they doing? What are they doing? How is that happening? And then you've got people like our special guest tonight is Claire Obermark. You haven't met her yet, but she's one of the people that's labeled Russ Fox, because I sent my link to her so that she would be completely unbeknownst to anybody. But Claire, welcome, and it's great to have you here. But she is a storyteller, and they weave this wonderful web of understanding and a place just like musicians, just like shamans, just like scientists, engineers, and inventors. They create a world in which we can learn about ourselves. So these are all technologists. And my favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes, I have many. Let's see here, get it to work. Oh, there we go. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. One of the most famous quotes from Arthur C. Clarke. And it's true. What scientists do look like magic. To my grandmother, when they first installed electricity in her house, she was so afraid that that stuff, whatever it is, was going to leak out of those little holes and injure everybody in the house. She was scared to death. She didn't understand. It was so sufficiently advanced that it was mystical, magic. And I would say that a singer who can spin out a line, that's magic. How is that happening? Why am I responding to it that way? You'll hear with Claire when she shares a story with us a little later on, that same thing is happening. It's a technology, but it's one that it wraps you in your arms and takes you out of your world and puts you in an entirely different space so you can see yourself in a different manner. And that's the goal, to see and understand yourself unlike you knew when you're in your normal daily working and family life. Let's move on. Now, these two people, most of you know, Dr. Rulin Shu, Dr. and Master Qigong Sha. Dr. Rulin Shu is a physicist, a quantum physicist, and a specialist in string theory. And she had made it her business to investigate what is the possibility of the grand unification theory, where everything can be explained by a single, I was going to say algorithm, a single equation. Well, she in fact has done that to my satisfaction. And Dr. Qigong Sha, we say doctor because he is a doctor of Western medicine. He is also a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, specialist in acupuncture. He's a grandmaster in Qigong, in calligraphy, in so many aspects of that which makes the quintessential understanding of Tao possible. Together, both of these people are co-founders and co-authors of both the study and the book, Tao Science. And what they are trying to do is find the missing links. I should have made that that S, missing links, to unify spirituality and science. Is that a possibility? Why not? And what we do understand is that Tao Science at its core allows us to fully understand who we are inside. Not just the bones, the flesh, the blood, all of the endocrine system, and everything that makes up a living human being. There's more to it. SHEN Therapy talks about more to it. Tao Science talks about more to it. And anybody who is a performing artist, and Claire, we all know that we're dealing with principles that are deeply personal, deep inside, and universal. So let's talk about these two and what they are actually doing. They have said this: everyone and everything is a vibrational field containing information, energy, and matter. Well, let's just start with that first line. Everyone and everything is a vibrational field. That would suggest to me that what I'm looking at, what I'm feeling here when I'm clapping my hands, and what we're all we're sitting somewhere and there presumably our hands could, our computer, our phone is in, it feels physical to me. Yes, within that vibrational field, there are infinite numbers of frequencies. And some of those frequencies are so dense that it looks to us like matter. And the field carries this matter in it. There is an energy, the ability to move the matter within that field. And then also within that field is this thing called information. Now that's interesting because that's a quantum physics term. And that it's not book learning. That's not that kind of information. It's a vibration that is either beneficial or not beneficial to the entire system. Something which allows us to connect, to grow together, to become closer, to grow in all of our aspects. This would be positive information. Something which would be dividing, disconnected, having degenerative situations in our body. That's a little less than connective, is it not? That would be negative information. So if there are some people new to this, don't glaze over. Everything's okay. But there are terms that are used that really do open up a new world. So if you are just a vibrational field, part of which you can see, and that's the only part that medical science has recognized, what about the rest of you? Is there a rest of you? Well, let's talk about the rest of you. These two people have changed the course of my life. I must say that in the last 2 or 3 years, as I've been more involved in Tao Hands and Tao Science, the information, the blessings, the technologies that have come through Dr. and Master Shah have allowed many of us in this audience to go far beyond what we thought our capacities were, to heal, to learn, to have relationships. And Dr. Rulin Shu, teaching the laws of manifestation, allowing us to literally bring into being and understand how to do that beneficial, positive information that manifests in good health, good jobs, good relationship. And when it doesn't happen, why not? That's a big question, isn't it? Because we so want to do good. We so want to grow. We so want to progress. And we do everything we think we want to do and are supposed to do. But for some reason, it's not working, not quite fast enough or not good enough. And then we feel terrible about it. Well, before I reveal the mystery, or try to, I want to introduce one other person that's been magical and wonderful in my life. And that would be Richard Pavic. Richard Pavic is the developer of SHEN Therapy. And back in the 70s, as a physicist, as an aeronautical engineer, somebody who was in chemistry and whatnot, very left brain. And he made it his business to disprove the whole concept of subtle energies. He said that can't possibly exist, and well, it didn't take him long of investigating to realize, in fact, there was something going on. And the thing that was going on was the thing that was never addressed in polite society or in medical science, either in the medical side or the psychiatric side. And that was the whole concept of emotions. And there's the question, what are emotions? They seem to control everything that we do, everything we think, all of our relationships. Yet, in the 1,600 pages that make up the 2 major books that deal with that all students have to learn in medical colleges and also psychiatric and psychology departments, not once in the listing and table of contents or the listings in the back is the word emotions mentioned? Because we can't touch them. We can't look at them under a microscope. What in the world are they? Looking back on our previous statements, I'd suggest you might want to look, as Tesla said, if you want to look at spirituality, begin with vibrations, frequency, and energy. He also asked these questions. Why are emotions so difficult to control? How do you do that? Why do they haunt us in spite of our best efforts? Now, that is a question, is it not? I've done my work. I want to get rid of all my anger, yet it always seems to keep coming back. Well, it just takes one little trigger and boom, I'm back. Why? What's going on? Why does reason so often fail to win out over unreasonable emotions? You know, why is it that when I'm angry, all I can think of is angry thoughts? If I feel devalued and I'm shamed and all that, well, the brain just kicks out everything that's necessary to make sure that I fully feel that right down to my gut, right? Why? Well, it apparently the brain's job is to pull out all the information and memories that will help justify whatever emotion happens to be up. That's interesting. Well, who's in charge here? My brain or something else? Why are they so powerful and so stubbornly tenacious? They do seem to hang on. And then, can we ever understand them? Well, the answer is yes, we can. And I'm going to move through this very quickly. Here's some initial charts that I put together. They're very primitive. I get that. But now most of you have seen this. And even if you haven't done Tao Science, even if you don't know much, you know that there's such a thing as chakras or energy centers. And here in our biofield world, in SHEN, we talk about emotion centers because, in fact, each one of these 5 locations assist us with understanding how we are feeling. We actually feel them in our torso. It's not I think angry, I feel angry. I feel sad. Or in my lower gut, oh, I'm so shamed. I feel so guilty. You know that crunch. Well, in the Tao world, they're called soul houses, or they're called information centers. And what's really interesting is, as a SHEN practitioner, since this has gone through university hospitals and mental health hospitals, and in years and years of testing and developing, defined the basic physics of it. Not only do we have these turning discs that the ancients talked about, the lotus flowers always blooming from the inside, right? And just each one of these has a flower coming forth constantly, and also spinning in a circle clockwise. So what's new to this is that little yellow band that seems to go up the right side, over the head, down the left side, and back together again at the feet. It is there. It's called a peripheral field. All of these fields have a basic anatomy which are the same, and it's the same as weather systems. It's the same as magnetic fields. It's the same as hydraulics. It's the same as water going down the drain. There is this sense of motion. But what's interesting here is that with that one going up the right side and then coming down the left side and everything in the middle turning clockwise, it's as if that yellow thing is like keeping the tops all spinning. Well, the ancient word for chakras in the Tao Chinese tradition is this: gears. As if the peripheral yellow field was up one side and the sprockets are, just in there and turning. as if they're being driven by a water wheel or something that made sense to them. Interesting that information centers, soul houses, emotion centers, they were originally called gears. Very, very interesting. Now, we move forward. Now, here you have a basic guy, and we've taken those 5 and we've given them a name. From the throat, the heart, the solar plexus. Now, ka, it means lower belly, lower dantian, second soul house, call it what you will. In Shen, we use the Sufi word, ka. It just simply means lower. And so it is almost the lowest of the centers. And then, of course, root. And they are located on every human being in exactly the same order and spatial context. You might want to advance that out to say on every mammal, because Shen and practitioners, healers for decades, eons, have been working on animals as well as people, tapping into principles that they might not have fully understood, but they knew that if I did this, that will happen. Well, now, from an emotional standpoint, and here we're going to get into why self-care is so difficult. You've got comfortable and expansive emotions, and you've got painful, contractive emotions. That's just the way they are. We all have them. And in the root, mortal terror. Oh, that I'm just about to lose my life. And there's a grip. Every time there's a contractive sense in my field, the body grips spasmodically. I don't try to do it. It just happens. Put yourself on a roller coaster and you're just on the top of that first hill. You're just about to go over. Oh, what is the first thing that tightens up? Your root, all the muscles, that whole perineal arch, everything down there, just, oh no, I'm about to die. And this happens in real life when someone is so under threat that they get paralyzed. They cannot move. Their legs will not work. Interesting. The cough, shame, guilt, self-judgment, devaluation. You know exactly what that feels like. Remember when you were in school and something happened? Maybe you tripped and fell, maybe you dropped something, or you fell off your bike, and all your supposed friends laughed and jeered at you. Remember what that's like? Yeah, you can all recall that, can't you? And where do you feel that? In your lower gut. It just got tight. There are 21 people on this call right now, and everyone who's listening, and lots more listen afterwards than during it, I know, all of you know what that crunch of guilt and shame is like. Let's talk about the solar plexus also. If I could now, once in a while, this does not want to move. Okay. There we go. Solar plexus, fear, anger, and anxiety. This fear is a little bit different than the root. This is the one that has to do with situations, with people. How am I going to deal with my boss, my parent-child relationships, my friends? Anytime there's a hierarchy, oh, I fear that. I think I'll avoid it. I'm anxious. Why? Because I don't know how I'm going to fit in. I don't know. It's this not knowing. And instead of crunching, sometimes I'll push back out and get angry. But in fact, that's just a cover, because actually I'm feeling shamed, fearful, or I'm feeling sorrowful, grief, and mourning. We all know about that crunch, do we not? How the sadness of something, your chest just wants to cave in. Why is that? What's causing that to happen? There are no muscular structures that all go in towards the center. And tightest in the middle, and then a little less tight as you go out. There's no structures that do that. There are no identified nerves that can cause that to happen, yet we feel it. Because the pain of that in our field causes this automatic contractive response to happen. We have no control over it. We literally don't. As long as that's resident in our field, it's going to be tweaked. And we are going to feel that continuously until we do something about it. And as far as the throat, it's not really an emotion, but if I don't have a clear and open throat, I can't speak the truth of how I feel. I can't be in the world and feel comfortable there. It's not okay to express myself. Is it any wonder that people who are on a job and the boss is a little bit overly observant and micromanaging, but you better not say anything about it? All of those cluster headaches that happen here, the shoulders, it's like your shoulders go up, your head goes down, everything contracts when you're not able to speak freely. We'll take a look at the other side. Instead of mortal terror, ease, calm, and clarity. Clarity? Are you talking about brain clarity? Yes, Russ, I'm talking about brain clarity. Opposite ends of a structure vibrate at the same rate. So when the root has no fear, totally okay to be here, I can think much more clearly. My brain is allowed to work. Likewise, confidence, self-valuation, personal power. How many times have you heard that? Your personal power is in your second soul house, or in your second information center, or in your second chakra, your lower dantian. That's where it is, because that's selfhood. That's me. That's my confidence. We move up. When there is not contraction in the solar plexus, it's like excitement, it's enthusiasm, it's peace. I have no problem. Well, if you haven't experienced peace in a long time, you might want to take a look at what fearful, anxiety-ridden thing is still part of your being in the solar plexus, and how are we going to deal with it? Of course, in the heart, love, joy, spirituality, and in the throat, it's okay for me to express myself. You know, it's all right. Now, here's the good news. Everything on the comfortable and expansive side, that's your basic nature. That's how you were born into the world. You do have a certain amount of resonant material you need to deal with that may have come from your mom and your dad and maybe generations beyond or prior. However, you have available to you everything that's on that comfortable and expansive side. The only thing we need to do is to allow everything on the painful side to be eliminated. How does one do that? Because it's in my field. How do I deal with my field? Well, let me just simply say, would you close your eyes? Would you close your eyes? I'm going to take you on a little journey. Those of you who have heard Dr. Rulin Shu and understand how this works, come along with us. I'm going to ask you to just sit very relaxed, feet on the floor, spine comfortable, maybe away from the chair, don't slouch. And just breathe in. Come aware of the breath in your nostrils, through an open throat, down through your open spine. Ah, how delicious is that? Free and easy. Breathing in through your spine, deep and wide. Let those lower ribs expand. Ah. Now bring your awareness completely into your torso. With each breath, you go deeper and deeper into your torso. Now, as you look around, look at your chest, inside your chest. Is it a little heavy? Is it a little darker? Is it not quite as flexible? Is it a little more difficult to breathe there? Or is that heaviness kind of in your solar plexus, down where your diaphragm is, between the navel and the bottom of your sternum. That's contracted. Oh, what's going on there? Or even lower into our lower gut, our cough or lower dantian. Is there something there that I have not dealt with? Take a breath. And Dr. Lin would say, be aware, observe, and feel. Feel. Allow yourself, before we go into a therapy session, take a breath, expand fully. And on the next breath, allow your eyes to open up, but leave your awareness inside. Okay? All right. Now you're up. Now we're on. But if you had stayed in there and you said, you know what? I feel something not right here. I'm sad. I'm feeling this tension. Move forward. Inhabit it. Feel it fully. I would add maybe one word from a Shen standpoint, and that would be aware, observe, allow, and feel. Most of us get to a point where it doesn't feel good, and so we back off. And that keeps the painful, contractive emotions active because we back off. Society says, no, it's not good to show your emotions. It's not good to express anger. It's not good to be crying in public if you're a man. It's not good to be angry in public if you're a woman. And so we get all of these messages which keep us internalized. Now let's move forward. Self-care and self-love. How am I going to deal with myself? Well, you know, the self-care and self-love, these are like the catchwords nowadays. Online, you're going to hear all about self-love, self-care, and whatnot. And there's a wonderful man who sends me wonderful material almost every day. And if he's here tonight, Randy, if you're on, God bless you. I saw this a couple of days ago and I said, now I have to respond to this. Self-care. These are 8 definite assumptions for self-care. If it feels wrong, don't do it. Say exactly what you mean. Well, that's just being honest, isn't it? Of course. Don't be a people pleaser. Well, that's kind of easier said than done, isn't it? Because some of these people, they dictate a lot of things about my life. I've got to please them. They have expectations. And well, trust your instincts. Well, as if your instincts are like a dog or a hummingbird knowing exactly where to find the flowers, even though they have never been on the migration route yet. That's an instinct. Trust your instincts. Well, we'll talk about that. Never speak bad of yourself. That should have said badly of yourself because it's an adverb, but that's okay. Never give up on your dreams. Don't be afraid to be brave. Well, if I'm going to say what I exactly mean and don't be a people pleaser, well, that's being brave, I would assume, and be kind and loving to yourself. Well, all of these feel so good, but they don't allow us to go in and connect with what's really going on. May I posit just a couple of questions? Number 1, if it feels wrong, don't do it. If it feels wrong, or do you mean if it feels uncomfortable? Because if it feels uncomfortable, like, oh, I'm going to connect with that fear, that sorrow, that shame, well, then I'm going to back off. So is it wrong or uncomfortable? Is that what I don't want to feel? And I'm telling you right now, from my standpoint and every client I've had for the last 40 years, we always back off when it gets too comfortable, and that keeps the negative information alive and well, ready to come back. Say exactly what you mean. Do I really mean that? Do you really mean what you're about to say? Or is that coming from a point of defense? Because I don't really want you to know what I mean. How often do we do that? Where's the integrity in that? Don't be a people pleaser. Well, what are my options for, how do I not be a people pleaser? I'll make enemies if I tell them how I really feel, if I do what I want to do. Besides, I'm being employed to do something, so maybe I have to do that. So what are my options rather than be a people pleaser? Trust your instincts. Well, again, my instincts are my feelings. I don't think I have many instincts, but I have a ton of feelings. Am I going to trust the contractive ones, or am I going to allow myself to engage with the positive, expansive? Those are the ones that I want to trust. 5, never speak badly of yourself. But what if it's true? What if I really am a procrastinator? What if I really am lazy? What if I really am bad at something? Can't I say that? Well, yes, I'm here to tell you, you can, but there is a magic word. It's a 3-letter word. Yet. I don't know how to do that yet, but I'm learning. I'm not good enough to be on that team yet, but I'm working on it. I don't have much patience with this behavior yet, but I'm doing my best to learn how to trust and learn. The most powerful word you've never thought of yet. Never give up on your dreams. Well, what are my dreams based on? Some dreams are wonderful. Some dreams are avoidance driven. I want this, so I don't have to do that. That's not a dream. Don't be afraid to be brave. Well, there's a book title, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And then be kind and loving to yourself. How about being honest and forgiving to yourself? We constantly are doing forgiveness practice in the Tao world, saying, oh, I just misspoke, I misacted, please forgive me. And we say that to people, we say that to heaven, we say that to the rock we stumbled over. Oh, so sorry to disturb your peace, but it's just part of what we do. Be honest, be forgiving. Now, the bottom line here is this. There is no transformation without truth telling. You understand? Now, I can't remember who said that, but it was just recently. It could have been Tony Robbins in an advertisement. I don't know. But if you know who said that, I'd love to find out. But there is no transformation without connecting with the truth of what's really going on inside and allowing yourself the freedom to finally excavate, experience it. It's not going to kill you, but you not experiencing it keeps it alive. Tao Science allows you to move through these difficult bits of information, transforming from negative to positive. SHEN Therapy is in a very much different manner can accelerate that process and allow us to move through. And so that the confident, all the things that were on the left-hand side there, the right-hand side of the being, but the comfortable ones, the joy, the confidence, all of that, that's allowed to come to the surface and then control our minds and our thoughts and our actions. It's a choice to self-care the way the world does it, or self-care with an understanding that there's more to you. There is a deep world. Sometimes it looks like a forest. I don't want to go into the forest. Or like in a horror movie, have you ever sat in a horror film and somebody is about to open a door and go downstairs and everybody in the audience yells, "Don't go into the basement." Well, we all have to go into the basement because that's where we end up finding the joy, the peace, the courage, the ability to move forward fully. Now, to make this a reality, a real reality, one that you can relate to, I'm going to invite our very special guest, who is none other than Claire Obermark, storyteller. And there's her Facebook page. And she is from my experience, one of the most gifted people at taking me personally on a journey where my mind disappears, my soul becomes wide open, and I begin to believe that almost every character and every word out of her mouth is part of me. And that's she would never call herself a shaman, and neither do I, but she has that mystical ability, a technology, if you will, that is so refined and so wonderful and so natural that to me it's magic. And so, Claire, if you would unmute yourself, I'm going to certainly try to stop screen share. Let's see, how do I do that? Yes. Now, help. I can't stop screen share.
I stopped it for you, Russ.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, let me get out of that. There we are. Claire, who's labeled Russ Fox. Claire, welcome.
Thank you, Russ. Thanks for that lovely introduction. And this has been so interesting to listen to. And I really wish your group, happiness for all your future meetings, because it's just wonderful to sit and think about these things, isn't it? And really contemplate them thoroughly. I don't know you guys, so I'll just give you a really brief background to what I do. I am a traditional oral storyteller. I've been doing that for over 15 years formally. I previously have worked with social workers, archaeologists, historians, designers. I worked with young offenders in women's prisons, within abstinence programs for addicts who are going through boot camps through the National Health Service. And I've worked with story in all of those settings, working through different things with different people. So the type of stories I bring to a situation depends upon the situation and upon the people there. But it's all to do with story. So as you guys will probably all know, a story is the what if. What if is the world, everything we can think of, everything we've ever invented, everything we can ever imagine and haven't even imagined yet is what if, i.e. it's story. So our entire existence and everything we think we know or might know is story, what if. And it's interesting that you're touching upon technologies, because over the last decade, scientists have started to actually really look at story and actually measure people's brains when they're listening to story. And what they found is that when people are listening to a story, their brain waves actually synchronize with the storytellers. And that's why, Russ, when you said, I feel as if I'm kind of being transported, that's why that's why that's happening, because your brain waves are actually synchronizing with the vibrations, with the what's in the air of what you're listening to. The other thing that happens with live storytelling is time displacement. As you say, you're not sure how long you've been sat there for. Is it a minute? Is it 20 minutes? Because time displacement works like that. You're in a different situation mentally, so you're placing yourself in another place, in another landscape. You're going into your own mind's eye. If you think about current technology, social media, for example, like Facebook and Instagram, they're examples of perpetual stories that don't end. So it's a story, scroll, constant starts to stories. Our minds aren't used to that because over centuries and centuries and thousands of years, we're used to start, middle, and end. We're not used to this fast flow of information. So our wee brains sit there and they're being bombarded with this once upon a time, but we're not breathing and stopping and sitting in with that once upon a time. So it affects all of those things, and that can add to how we feel. And our brain waves just work differently when we're listening and having to imagine, as opposed to being shown or told. When you're shown what something is, you've got your information. When you have to see in your own mind's eye what something is, your brain works differently. Parts of your brain that don't normally work suddenly wake up and start thinking. You're imagining. So often when I'm telling my stories, I don't describe the people in the story. I'll never say they had dark hair or they looked like this, or I won't do a lot of describing words because that's not my job. That's the listener's participation. That's how they're participating, by doing that imagining. And all these things create a natural element of healing. So listening to a story in itself is just natural healing, and it can be used really effectively, and just kind of just makes us feel as if we're in the moment and we're slowing down. So because it's St. Patrick's Day soon, and I just wanted to give a little example, but it like many traditional folk tales, this story is effectively, it's a children's story, but they're the best ones because they have the most layers. They're the don't go into the woods. Well, what is the woods? You know? So this is a story. I always start my sessions, as Russ, you'll know, with a quick Celtic blessing, if you like. Yesterday, a stranger came to my door, and I put food in the eating place, drink in the drinking place, music, story, and song in the listening place. And that stranger blessed myself, my family, my home, and my cattle. For often sings the lark in her song, goes the Lord of all in the stranger's guise. So we're now no longer strangers. We have our Zoom, we have our story circle. This story comes from Ireland. It was told to me by a very dear friend and my story mentor, David Campbell. It was told to David by traveller and master storyteller Duncan Williamson. It was told to Duncan Williamson, he thinks, by his father's cousin, Willie Williamson, but it is an Irish tale. And we normally call this story The Tramp and His Boots. Now, I know here in America, the word tramp means something else. So I'm going to replace the word tramp with hobo or traveler. But if I say tramp, just know that it's because I'm so used to saying The Tramp and His Boots. So I might say it now and again. And it's just a wee story. Once upon a time, there was a traveling man, a hobo, who walked the roads. And in those days, there were no fences or gates, and you could pretty much walk wherever you wanted. You could sleep on the side of the road in the verges, you could sleep in the fields, you could shelter under the trees and the hedgerows. Well, this man of the road, he'd been walking a lot. That's all he did, walked every day. But on top of this, it was summer, and he was hot, and he was tired, and he was hungry. He'd not had much to eat for days now. The last main thing he'd had to eat was a dead rabbit he'd found by the side of the road that he'd cooked. But that was it, really. He was out in the middle of nowhere in the sticks, and he knew that he needed to find some habitation, a farm, anything where he could maybe get some food. He'd been traveling for many days. And he came to rest. And as his eyes looked over the way, he saw a most beautiful hill. It was a low hill, but the sunlight was just coming down on the hill. The day was nearly ending. and he could see the hill. It looked lush and green, and it had beautiful flowers. It was covered in daisies, and it just looked really welcoming. It looked like a really good place to have a sleep. So the man goes over to this hill, and he gets himself snuggled down, and he gets comfy, and he lays back, and he just falls into just the most perfect sleep, that wonderful place where you're between being awake and just about to fall to sleep. And he hears the insects buzzing, and he feels the sun's rays on his face, and he knows that he needs to rest because his feet have been so sore. His boots are worn through. Well, he starts to fall to sleep, and all of a sudden he hears a voice, and the voice sounds really quite annoyed, and it says, "Hey, you." The man opens his eyes, and then the voice says, "Hey, you, old fella, come on, wake up." Well, he looks around and he can't see anything. He's looking around, and then the voice comes again, "Down here, old man, down here." And the man looks down, and he sees this wee little man, this tiny man. He must have only been about 12 inches high. And he's frowning up at the man, and he looks really, really annoyed. And he's got his hands on his hips, and he's got wee curly shoes and a little jacket and a little hat. And he says, "You've got to go. You can't stay here." "Well, I'm just going to sleep," says the fella. "I'm just resting. I'm really tired." "You can't stay here. You have to go. You have to go now." "What do you mean I have to go? I can stay wherever I want. I've just got comfortable. Let me sleep." And, the hobo, he thinks he's in a dream. He's thinking, this is funny. What a funny dream I'm having. I must be deliriously tired to be seeing this little fella and having this conversation. Oh, this is a sweet dream to be having. "Excuse me, you can't stay. You have to go," said the voice. And then he felt a nip on his shin, and the wee man, he was pinching his shin and tapping on his leg. He says, come on, get up, you've got to go." And he says, why have I got to go?" "It doesn't matter why you've got to go. What can I give you to make you leave?" says the wee man. And he said, "Come on, old man, get going." He says, "Do you want food? Is it food you want? Are you hungry?" And the old man said, "Well, yeah, I am hungry, but it's my feet, actually. My feet are really, really hurting." And the wee man looks down, and he sees the hobo's feet, and he just starts to feel sorry for him, because you can see the soles of his boots are completely worn through, and he can see that his toe is sticking out of the front of the boot, and it looks all gnarled and sore, and he thinks, yeah, his feet do look swollen and sore, and he thinks, right, okay. And he stops commanding him, and he stops telling him off, and he says, "If I can get you what you need to make your feet feel better, will you leave this hill now?" Well, the guy shrugs. And then, like this, the wee man, he disappears. And the hobo thinks, I must be dreaming. What a funny dream this is. I just start to go back to sleep. And he starts just going off back to sleep. He must have just been doing that for a few minutes, when all of a sudden he gets a tap back on his shin, and he sits up and he pulls his knees up close, and the wee man, he literally just comes up to his kneecap, and he says, here, and he's holding up this pair of boots. And the hobo looks at the wee man, and he says, "Well, I really appreciate you going off and getting these for me, but there's absolutely no way these boots are going to fit." "Oh, wait a minute, says the wee man. And he takes out a little tape measure, and he goes round and he measures up his feet, and then he plonks the boots down, and they start to grow and change. And they grow into a size that looks pretty perfect for his feet, and they're absolutely gorgeous. They're engraved. They look like the boots that a king would wear. He's never seen such gorgeous boots, and he just thinks, I can't believe this. Nobody's ever given me a present like this. This is amazing. Put them on, says the wee man. So he gets them and he pulls them on. Oh, and they're like velvet. Oh, they're like, he can actually feel all the tension in his body leaving. His feet feel as if, they're being cuddled and stroked and massaged. He feels all the pains in his knees and his legs leave him. He even feels his shoulders start to go down, and he just, what it is to wear a good comfy pair of shoes. It's like heaven. And he says to the wee man, oh, these shoes, they feel as if you've measured every part of my foot. They feel amazing. Nobody's ever given me a gift like this. Thank you so very much. Will you go now? Said the wee man. Come on, away. Well, the old fellow stands up. Oh, and it feels good. Oh, it feels great. And he says, oh, I'll be off. I'll definitely be off. I said I'd go if you gave me what I needed, and you've done that for sure. Thank you so much. And he turns, and just as he's turning around, the wee guy says to him, excuse me. And he turns around and he looks worried, you know, because he thinks he's going to ask him for the boots back. He thinks he's maybe going to say, oh, they're just for you to try on. You can't really keep them. And he thinks, oh, and the wee man says, can you keep a promise? And he says, yeah. And he says, you promise you will never tell a soul for as long as you live who gave you these boots, where you got them, and where you were when you got them. Ah, yeah, I'll keep the promise, said the hobo. Fine, away. So off the hobo goes, and he's off, and he can't believe how much his feet have been hurting before, because the contrast is just, it's like day and night. It's unbelievable. He walks every day, no matter how far he walks. His boots never wear down. They never rub him. They're always comfortable. They never get dirty. He wakes up and miraculously they look as shiny and gorgeous as the day that he was gifted them. And he wears them all the time. And then one day, about 2-3 years later, it's around the same time of year, it's hot, and he thinks, you know what, I'm not being respectful to these boots. I've got really filthy feet. I think I'll give them a wash. So he sits down by the side of a stream and he dips his feet in and he starts to freshen them up. And he says, oh, this time I've been putting these grubby feet into these beautiful boots. I should be ashamed of myself, really. And he starts, you know, washing his feet. And there is a fisherman down the way and he starts coming up and he's fishing in all the pools, and he gets near to where the hobo is sitting washing his feet, and he looks at him and he looks at the hobo and he can see he's got straggly hair, he's unkempt, he's got dirty face, his clothes are ragged and filthy and old, and yet by the side of him is a pair of boots the likes of which he's never seen. There's no way these can be this guy's boots. And he says, hello, how are you doing? It's a fine pair of boots you've got there. And the hobo says, hello, yes, thank you. Yeah, they're very fine. They're my favorite boots. I wear them every day. Where did you get them? Said the fisherman with suspicion. What do you mean? Said the hobo, they're mine. And the fisherman says, I don't think they're yours. He said, look at you. He said, you're clearly a hobo. Where did you steal those boots from? He said, they're clearly a laird's or a king's. Where did you get them from? He said, are you wanted? Are you on the run? And the hobo says, no, I'm not on the run. I was gifted these boots. Thank you very much. They are mine. I wear them every day. You can see that they fit perfectly. I'll show you. And he goes to pull his feet out the stream and he starts putting them on. Said the fisherman. I'm pretty sure you stole those boots. There's no need to you know, prove anything, but I think you know that you're a thief. I am not. How dare you? Said the hobo. How dare you call me a thief? I did not steal these boots. These boots were gifted to me by the king of the fairies. He gifted them to me so that I would leave the fairy hill because they wanted to have a party, and I did, and that's why he gifted them to me. They're my boots. Yeah, right, said the fisherman. Right, tell that to the judge. And he carried on along the way. Well, the hobo looked down and he was looking at thin air. The boots had gone. And that night, he slept without any shoes, and he was cold, and he was hungry, and he was tired. And he knew that he'd never get those boots back. And for the rest of his life, he spoke this story as if it was just a dream that he'd had on the side of that hill. But you know, sometimes I have that dream too. And when I wake up, this is what I find. So that's just a nice example of fairy lore, because we have to keep our promises to the fairies. That's what you must always do. You cannot break a promise. If they help you, which they often do, they ask you for something in return, you must keep your promise. And that's just basic law of the fairies and the other elements. You know, we have these other worldly things, witches that are connected to old houses in the forests, kelpies that connect with waterfalls, the brunies that are in like old mills, you know, and the fairies, of course. And they tend to live in the side of hills, and they get let out on May the 1st, and they come out and they stay out for the whole summer. And then for the winter months, they're away. So, you know, they're still under the hills at the moment. They're not coming out according to the law. But it's a lovely story about how you feel as well, how you feel and what you do and how it makes you feel. And I think it suits our discussion in a layered way. And it's just a nice idea of how a story can just take you into another place. And what you see in your mind's eye is your inner truth, and nobody can tell you that it's not. So I hope you enjoyed that story, and I'll pop you back over to Russ now.
Claire, thank you. I want to say I'm really fortunate to know Claire. And she actually lives here in Sedona. So I get to hear her and see her often. It's wonderful. Claire, would you agree that in story, part of what it is that transfixes us is that we are the hobo, and there are gifts of boots and untold treasures that are inside us, that if we would, they could come forth and they could be ours if we allow ourselves to go into that sense of inner world.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the layers that are on that very simple story are that he didn't feel as if he deserved those boots. You know, so why would he make those boots himself or get them himself? It had to, obviously, he would only get them through some chance event that he had no control over. So he wasn't in control of being gifted. It was somebody else, you know, that gifted him, but they were his boots.
Beautiful.
You know?
Well, from a SHEN standpoint and from a Tao standpoint also, because they agree on this. And that is that the boots are inside us all. Even the little wee man is part of who we are and can connect with and allow ourselves to be wearing the boots, meaning being fully honest, being fully open, being okay. It's all right to speak your mind. It's all right to say, I may not be good at this yet, but I'm learning. All of those things are blessings. They're gifts. They're strengths. They're character pieces, which we usually don't access.
Yeah.
And we can lose them by dishonoring them. And then it goes back into the field, becomes our negative and contractive information again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And you know, a lot of the simplest stories, you know, can have the most profound thoughts that when you can listen to a story and it's just really simple at the time, it's just a story. And then a day later, you're like, oh, and it's really profound, the connection, you know, and and the thing is, because stories are us, we really take them for granted, like we take ourselves for granted. Of course we take our stories for granted because we're stories, everything's story. So, you know, we don't even think about it. You know, when people say, oh, you know, when you listen to a story, your brain waves synchronize and all these amazing things happen, and we're like, oh, it must be science then, that can't possibly be us. But it's just an explanation of something that we do and we've done since we could make a sound, you know. So it's there. It's just how we explain it and understand it differs over the years, and it moves and progresses, you know.
Whether you're a shaman, whether you're a storyteller, whether you're a musician, whether you're a Tao scientist, or whether you are in my case, a SHEN therapist, Reiki, massage, whatever it is, as you allow the people and yourself to move into that inner world, to go into the forest, to go down the stairs to the basement, there's
Yeah.
riches waiting for us. There are great riches always waiting for us.
Yeah. And another fundamental thing about traditional stories are they're never about me. They're always about the community. They're always about the listener, and who the listener isn't it's never identified, because that way they're easier healers. You know, they serve everybody. So often you won't hear a folktale is like, I was walking down the street and then this happened to me, and this, you know, there's a very thin line between that and counseling. So that's counseling, that's therapy. But then stories and listening to stories is natural therapy. You know, you don't need to be given the specific details when you're listening. You gift out when you're storytelling, you gift the story out. So it's never about the storyteller. It's always just about, as you say, a vibration going out, you know? But then you've got our language and the way that we understand words and how we explain the world around us, and that fills in the rest, you know, and then we take from it what happens at what we do at the time. But that's how I see story, as something that gets gifted out. And the ethos and the ethics of traditional story are that, you know, they gift out, they serve the listener, they serve everybody there. You know, who's telling it is kind of irrelevant, you know.
And so from a Tao standpoint, one can give blessings, one can send vibrations out to people. Their ability to accept and thoroughly use it is often limited because you don't know how to receive.
Yeah, like the tramp and the boots.
Yes,
he receives the boots and then he's scared straight away. He thinks, oh, he's going to take them off me.
You see,
It's
yes.
the first thing he thinks, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Well, Claire, delightful. Very, very delightful. Thank you so very much. And with just keeping you on camera for a little while, can I, Holly or Terry, whoever wants to take on this, are there any questions for either me, for Claire, about what we've been talking about? This wonderful thing about the stories we tell ourselves, whether they're right or wrong, beneficial or not, they have a huge effect on us.
Mm-hmm.
And when we through self-care and self-love, we have the option of reframing or transforming our lives and our stories. Sometimes our stories are not serving us well, and they need to be retold and respun and gotten a little bit closer to. What is it that we have avoided? How can we get closer to that so it can be released? Simple as that. Anyone, anything? Just, if you want to put on the gallery view, whoever's in charge of the visuals, or how you do that. Any questions whatsoever? Any? Which is good.
If anyone has a question, you don't have to come on camera. You can just unmute and speak, or you can also put it in the chat. And thank you, Claire. That was just beautiful. And Russ, as always.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, what we can easily do is just say, every Friday night, something like this happens on the Tao Portland Community Healing Fridays. And it's a chance for those of us who do other things in addition to Tao to kind of take off the Tao hat and allow these other things to come forward, because they are adjuncts. They are improved by, they are made whole and even better by the joining of Tao understanding, the science, and then this other wisdom that we often can't put a finger on, but influences us, whether you call them emotions or in other cultures, the spiritual realm. It's all the same. I have a wonderful friend who said something, and it was a pastor, a minister that had said this years and years ago. And I made it into a little thing, which I didn't think to put on for tonight, but it's very simple. As we're looking for, I want the answer. I need the answer. Well, Dr. Rulin and Master Shah are always saying, don't be attached. Both attachment and detachment, they are both real and unnecessary. They're real and not real. They're all part of this big field that we're all part of. And so the pastor's words were this: there is no answer, but seek it lovingly. Which suggests it's the journey, it's the path, it's the way of doing things. That is the reason that we're here, not to arrive at a very specific destiny or destination. So there's no real one answer, but seek it lovingly. I hope that's a jewel you will take with you, along with the boots that were so wonderful for a while, and then were given away because of an emotion that got tweaked. Let's let that be a lesson to us all. Terry, I'm going to hand it back to you and allow you to close this off for us. Thank you so much.
Russ, thank you. Every time that you've presented, I've been fascinated. So, and I would ask all of you who can find the thing down on the bottom that says reactions. And if you appreciated this, you can make a thumbs up, or you can put a heart there, or you can't see that flower thing very much, but I see a couple of thumbs up through, and there's a bouquet. Yeah. So if you would be interested in exploring an aspect of yourself, then in the chat room, there's several posts, and one, just the last one that I see over there, on how to get in touch with Russ. And, you know, listening to him tonight reminded me that I've been too long without Russ. So we're going to speak here in about 15 minutes. And I'm looking forward to another. Oh, and did you know that in addition to two-handed SHEN therapy, because they use their hands, these SHEN therapists, but it's also possible to do four-handed. And it's also possible to do it remotely. I had a SHEN therapy session once, and you can see Aliel Kinder smiling and waving. I was on her table in Vancouver, Washington, and Russ was somewhere down in the hot places. No, not that. It's one of the states here in the United States.
Arizona, please. Yes.
Arizona, there it is. And at one point I says, Aliel, do you have your hand underneath the root of my spine? And she says, no. And Russ says, I do. I'm going, you're 900 miles away. But I'd forgotten, because as Tao Hands practitioners, you know, we know how to do remote blessings, or whatever you want to term them. So two-handed, four-handed, and more is possible. And I'd had no idea what to expect with SHEN therapy. I've explored a lot of things in my life because I've needed help when whatever I had been using wasn't working or quit working. And what I found with SHEN therapy was Russ spoke about touching, being based in, and dealing with the emotional aspects of your body. Wow. I had closed myself down so much that it took me 3 sessions to sense, to perceive what was going on. So if you're emotionally distant, don't raise your hand. It's okay. You can continue to be invisible. You won't have to say anything about it with Russ because they know it. They feel it. And no shame, no blame. I was pleasantly held, not so much, well, I was a little surprised, honestly. But there's Russ and Aliel also have this ability not to be there's no judgment. It's, well, I noticed this, there's this, you might want to consider that. And why don't you try breathing this way? And I went, really? So I want to, I've been around the block. It's like if you ever saw that old movie, Fritz the Cat, been around the world, and he's in a hospital and he's in traction, one leg and 2 arms. So, I've been similar to that and had a lot of different kinds of help. SHEN is unique. If there's something that's not working for you, I found some answers there. And Russ, I need to hook up with you again. Yeah. So, Russ, thank you again. We're so grateful. And Claire, thank you. And incidentally, those teeny little boots really anchored the story. It's like, wow. And Aliel, would you care to unmute? Because you've got your hand up and either you want to say something or you're just waving. You're muted though.
Took me a moment to unmute. I wanted to add in 2 things. One is if you're doing something that's working, my experience is that SHEN will help it work better. And that to bring Russ back to the Pacific Northwest before he heads off to Africa for 2 months is folks wanting SHEN sessions. And more than that, if you want 2-hand SHEN or 4-hand SHEN, there aren't very many people trained in SHEN. And that's one of Russ's and my goals and missions in the next year is to offer what's called a SHEN workshop. It's like an immersion where you receive a lot of SHEN as for your own personal growth, but also it's the first start to training people if they'd like to go on and become certified in SHEN therapy.
And I would also follow that up with, I have a friend who was in a recent SHEN workshop with Russ and Aliel and is fascinated with it. I was surprised. Like, wow.
Yeah, he's quite a powerhouse, but more than fascinated with it, he had said he wants to go on to become certified in it. So we can do a 7-day towards the beginning of April or possibly towards the end of April. And if you're interested, you can contact myself or Russ. And we need at least 5 more people, and then he'll come out.
So Aliel, if you will put your contact information in the chat room, Russ's is already there. And if any of you would be interested in doing a presentation on a Friday night, that's 7 to 8:30 or so, sometimes 9, Portland time, Portland, Oregon, then you can contact me and I will put my email address in there also. Terry McGill, see if I spelled that right, at comcast.net. So the options are up to you. You can receive SHEN therapy. You can become, well, you can explore the training. You can share what it is that you would like to know or to share
I would
here on a
just,
Friday night.
I would just add, go to the website and everything is really explained there. But then for personal questions, just give us a call. We love to talk, as you may have noticed tonight.
So I have just copied and pasted that again, so it's clear down at the bottom. Aliel's email address is just above it. And we're going to be back. Well, Holly, I'm not sure. How about, when are we back next?
As of right now, we're still looking for someone who would like to lead on this upcoming Friday. So, if nobody is available, then we'll probably be back the week after that when we have somebody that is able to host. Yes.
Super. So next Friday is an opportunity for you. And please contact me. My email address is up there. And you can contact Russ and/or Aliel. So those are your options. And let's all, if you can reach down into the, if you're able, I don't know what device you have, but mine allows me on the reactions to put this heart up there. And so Claire and Russ and Aliel and everyone who's shown up to support, to cheer everyone on. Thank you all. And until, well, check the same place that you found this information next Friday, and you'll find out if there's one next Friday or if you're forced to wait a week more. So until the next time.
I would also like to add, this has been on Facebook. So if you haven't, if you don't follow us or like us already, do it. And you can share this information, this entire program with your friends. Get the word out.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Holly. And thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. We'll say goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everyone. Love you.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you, Russ. Bye for now.
Bye now.